Welcome everyone to the Game Sense Football Podcast. In today's episode, we talk about Erik ten Hag and his position with Manchester United. So Nas, lots of talk has been going on with Erik ten Hag's position with Manchester United. With the whole Ineos takeover of footballing matters, the whole revamp of the upper management. So I think it's about time talk trickles down to the manager and his position in the team. Erik ten Hag, he hasn't been doing super well. He hasn't been doing super badly. So I think we can discuss today about the pros and cons of keeping him in the team.
Yeah, I think Erik ten Hag's position at United is an interesting one, and I know we use that word interesting a lot, but this is quite interesting again because there are many reasons for and against, and I think today we'll look at 10 reasons for Ten Hag, or rather 10 reasons for and against. So let's see how if we can change each other's opinions.
Yeah. So should I to kick it off?
Okay, so I've been a fan of Erik ten Hag for a while. I wouldn't profess to say I've been following him forever, but I've liked him since his very young, exciting Ajax team had a good run in the Champions League. And the young and exciting aspect of it is what is my first point about why we should keep faith with Erik ten Hag, in that he focuses and promotes youth.
Mm.
So this season, the two obvious candidates are Kobe Mino and Garnacho. And you could say Rasmus Højlund as well. Obviously, Højlund wasn't from the United Academy, but it's another young player that has become a key part of the first team. So if I'm not wrong, Garnacho has started the last 20, 25 games for United, something like that. And it's very evident that Erik ten Hag is very willing and very happy to give young players a chance in the first team. And as United fans, this has always been part of the United DNA, right? The class of '92 with from Giggs, Beckham, the Neville brothers, from later on with Rashford and all, Scott McTominay to a lesser extent. This has always been part of United's culture, United's identity. So for the longest time, we've been crying out for someone who understands this, right? And Ten Hag, even before United, has had this habit, has had this preference for youth. When he was at Ajax, he built the team around Matthias de Ligt, Frenkie de Jong, David Neres, Nasser Mazraoui, even Donny van der Beek. In his first full season, these players were all 21 and under, and they were all the important players. These were the important players in his team. Obviously, there were also a few older heads like a Daley Blind, but he really lent on these young players, like he's leaning on Kobe Mino and Garnacho and Højlund. And in the past 2 years, he's also given chances to Hannibal, to Facundo Pellistri, to Anthony Elanga, Dan Gore, Willy Kamblawa, a few others. And I just found out actually that Willy Kambwala, the defender that's played a few times this season, was France under 16 captain. So that's a bit of pedigree that we have coming up. And, with a manager like Ten Hag, that's potential that can be nurtured.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with you on that. Especially if you look back towards his Ajax teams, I think there's a real big focus on the youngsters in the squad. Probably also helped in no small part by the fact that the Ajax had an incredible academy. And actually, if you look at the United academy, it's also filled with some pretty decent up and coming players. Not to forget, his first signing for United was actually Tyrell Malacia, hardly known youngster in England, or rather from the Netherlands. But the people in England, didn't really know him at the time, right? And I think the only reason why he hasn't been playing this season was because of injury. But if you do include him as well, that's another youngster to the books that Ten Hag actually puts his faith in. And I think you're right. His philosophy of going with youngsters does put him in a good position to continue that tradition as Man United manager. And I can see him continuing that tradition if he stays in this position.
Yeah, and obviously keeping faith and giving minutes and having confidence in these young players also means that these players would have naturally would want to repay this faith, and also from a young age they'll be schooled in his style of play, his mentality, his what he wants. All these players are pliable, malleable, eager to learn, eager to impress. I'm sure this is also part of his thinking. And to me, it's only good. If they're good enough, they're old enough.
Yep, that's right. And actually, what you mentioned earlier also about how, he mixes in the youth with the older heads, the more experienced heads as
Mm,
well. So in Ajax there was the whole, the Daily Blinds and all. In United, you do have the older heads as well, like Bruno in the team. You have
like a Casemiro,
Casemiro.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the mix of youth as well as experience has been pretty good. But whether or not that translates to results, of course, we will discuss that point later on
Yeah,
in the episode.
definitely. And even
Yeah.
Sir Alex Ferguson, his class of 92 and all, obviously was tempered with older players like a Schmeichel, like a Roy Keane. And before that, it was McClare, Hughes, Pallister, Bruce, stuff like that. And nobody's asking for the manager to just go full under 18s, but to just give youth a chance. And, it makes fans excited and happy to back one of their own as well, right? That's why you've seen Rashford, for example, who has a lot of up and down seasons, but maybe until recently the fan base was still so behind him, and then that helps a lot.
Mm, that's right. That's right.
Yep,
Totally agree.
yep. And speaking of Rashford, that brings me to my second point. Ten Hag has instilled a sense of discipline and high standards within the squad. In the last couple of seasons, he's very publicly disciplined players like Marcus Rashford, like Jadon Sancho, like Cristiano Ronaldo, all for various kinds of breaches. And
Mm,
to me, that sets the standard. And Tom Heaton, the backup keeper, last year he said that Ten Hag has brought clear messaging, clear lines of what's acceptable and what's not, and the responsibility is on everyone, the professional side of it. And when you cross it, he's there to put you back in your place. If you remember last year when Marcus Rashford was flying, he overslept and missed a team meeting, and even though he was United's most on-form player, got dropped immediately.
yeah,
He
yeah.
did come on to score in that game, but that shows the hardline stance that Ten Hag has, and he's basically not taking any. He's only accepting his high standards and nothing else. He dropped Rashford again after a late night out in Belfast. I think Rashford went to some party and then said he was ill. So he got dropped immediately, and we all know what happened with Ronaldo throwing his toys out of the pram and everything. So I think that's good. The manager must be the biggest personality at the club. No player should be bigger than the manager or the club. If the manager instills this sense of discipline and is able to, I wouldn't say it isn't about inspiration. It isn't about making them fear you, but this is another way to have higher standards of professionalism, of respect, of performance all around. And this is what Ten Hag wants, and to me, what we can see happening slowly but surely.
Yeah, I think two main things that strike me from Ten Hag on the way that he handles discipline and the way he handles the squad as well. So one of the things is there's actually minimal media drama coming from him. Like you mentioned, managers such as Mourinho and Van Gaal, they're also known as disciplinarians in their own way, but they also like to make use of the media to, they play games with the media a little bit. They use distraction tactics. They divert attention using the media. But I think with Ten Hag, he's a lot more straightforward with that. He doesn't throw his players under the bus. He doesn't. I
Mm,
mean, well, for most of the time at least. I think maybe later
yeah.
on we could argue something against that, but he doesn't really throw his players under the bus. He doesn't really play the media game. And the other thing is when he disciplines his players, he tries to be fair. In the early days, when he just took over, we had the defeat against Brentford, right? 4-0
Second game, I
last
think. Yeah.
last season, yeah.
Mm,
And there was the statistic that the squad ran like 13 kilometers less than the opponents, and he made everybody run that distance. And what was reported also was that he ran the distance with them as
yep.
punishment.
Yep.
Yep. And I think that's one way, to really like to discipline the squad in a way. I see this as disciplining based on lack of effort, right?
Mm,
On the pitch.
mm.
Yep. And to make it look as fair as possible where he actually does it with them. So I think that's just one way to build camaraderie within the team.
Yeah, definitely. And this is an aspect of man management, right? And maybe his go-to strategy is discipline, is hardline, is authoritarian, but it works. And for this Man United squad, for this young Man United squad who still needs to find a winning mentality, I think this is what they need.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Earlier, you mentioned the Brentford game where we lost very badly. And one of the reasons we lost very badly was Ten Hag. There's Ten Hag's second game, I think, right? First game was against Brighton, which also lost. Those two games, everyone remembers very vividly that Ten Hag was trying to play this play out the back, full possession, tiki taka, short passing, intricate style, and and everyone was saying, "Oh, Ten Hag's look at Ten Hag's tactics. It's not going to work. He's wedded to this system. He's going to be a failure." What we saw next, the next game is United beat Liverpool, and to me,
Mm.
this is the third point, and that when Ten Hag came to United, everyone was saying, "Oh, he's gonna bring this Ajax style. United are going to be this fluid tiki taka team, cry of total football." We've seen that to not be the case, and very famously, Ten Hag recently said that he cannot implement the Ajax style, and a lot of people jumped on that as an admission of failure. But to me, that also shows that he is willing to compromise tactically, which is my next point of why we should keep faith with Ten Hag. He's not just a one-trick pony who just coaches and uses and knows one style. In fact, even at Ajax, he used different styles. A lot of people were exposed to how his team dismantled Real and all, and that was amazing with Dusan Tadic as a false nine, Southampton legend Dusan Tadic as a false nine. But in the few years he was at Ajax, he also used Sebastian Haller as a target man up front. He had Donny van der Beek playing as a sort of like as I'm hesitant to use this comparison, but sort of a Jude Bellingham kind of midfielder running into the forward line. He's not Jude Bellingham, but what
Mm.
I'm saying is he's used the various styles. They've all focused on possession, but we've seen Ten Hag be flexible. The possession style hasn't worked for whatever reason, so he's transitioned to a transition style. He himself has said that he wants to turn United into the best or most dangerous transitions side in Europe, and that plays to the strengths of Marcus Rashford, of Garnacho, of Rasmus Højlund. Our best attacking midfielder is Bruno Fernandes, and again the transition styles suits Bruno Fernandes. All that being said, we can still see the players he's brought in. Onana, Lisandro Martinez, Kobe Maino, not brought in, but he's used. All these players can very easily suit the style that people are almost begging he implement, but you can't just anyhow do it, right? Right now, United are using this transitional style because that's where we are. But give him time, and I'm sure he can go to a more, well, inverted commas, modern possession style.
I think the point about giving him time. I think we can talk about the next good thing about why we should be keeping Erik ten Hag would be that um short-term thinking, short-termism isn't really the way to go, right? To build
Hmm.
a football club, to build a project around.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Jurgen Klopp's first season, he didn't finish very high. Arteta's first season, people said Arteta out, and now he's he's still not won anything. But no Arsenal player is saying Arsenal fan is saying Arteta out. People are saying he's the best manager in the world, but Arsenal fans. But unless you're Chelsea, with alleged financial doping, sacking your manager every 12 to 18 months does not work. That's not a winning formula. And all that being said, with all the critique around Ten Hag, he still has a better win percentage of any manager since Ferguson, better than Van Gaal, better than Jose, better than Moyes. It's not going to do anyone any good ditching him now. He's had similar or better goals per game than anybody else aside from Solskjaer, who played such a suicidal gung-ho style. Fun, but that was never going to win anything. Ten Hag has the best win percentage of any manager, and he got top four in
Mm.
his first full season, which Ferguson and Jose did not achieve.
Wow.
So he's not better. I'm not saying he's better than two of them, but I think he has more credit in the bank than people, give him credit for. Getting rid of him also involves paying him and his staff, and that's just adding to the FFP issues that United are still and everybody else is facing. United already have issues spending money and building a squad. if you bring a new manager that doesn't rate Onana or doesn't want a short defender or doesn't want a Hoyland kind of striker, United do not have the financial flexibility to build a squad again. And I guess that leads me to my final point of why we should
Mhm.
keep Ten Hag. To me, there are no good alternatives anyway.
Really?
Yeah, because in the British media last few days, the name that has been bandied around is Gareth Southgate, England manager, Middlesbrough's Gareth Southgate, and he did very well bringing England to deep into tournaments. You know, a semi-final, and final after they've not gone nearly as far for so long. But he got that far because he has Harry Kane and because of set pieces. And Southgate is just boring. You know, he doesn't make attacking changes. The last England's last game over the weekend against Brazil, it was still 0-0, but England had lost control of the game. He made a triple substitution. He had Rashford, James Madison, Ivan Toney, Kobe Mino on the bench, all of players who can inject a spark. He puts on Luis Dunk, Joe Gomez, and Jared Bowen. That's not the kind of ambition you want or need. Yeah, he's just boring and uninspiring. And you know, if you wanted a manager that got relegated with a Premier League club before, you might as well go back to Solskjaer.
Get your point. I get your point about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so like, and then other alternatives. Zidane, you know, he doesn't speak English, and he's not gonna go to United. Do we go? Like I said, we might as well go back to Ole, but that no. Jose also free. No. Conte, definitely not. I mean, no. So there are a few other names, I give you that, but I don't really see anybody doing a better job than Ten Hag, unless you're telling me Klopp wants to go to United.
Klopp, no chance, man. No chance.
No chance.
So speaking about other managers being not available, I think with the recent announcements of all the managers who are departing clubs, we have Xavi, we have Tuchel available, as well as I think Lopetegui is available as well. Graham Potter, I suppose. If Southgate can be bandied as a name linked to the club, I think these are all names that are arguably better than what Southgate can offer to Man United.
I
And
agree that
mm,
Tuchel and Xavi and maybe Lopetegui would offer more than Southgate, but would they offer more than Ten Hag?
that's difficult to say. I mean, I don't think anybody can really answer that question, right? I think if Ten Hag were to be let go, it wouldn't be judged based on is there someone better to be brought in, but more importantly, it'll be judged based on his own performances, his own results that he has gotten, at the club. But what I do have to say that's linked to the players that are available to Ten Hag would be there are actually quite a number of players in the squad that were brought in by Eric Ten Hag since he came to United, and there is I think a general consensus that there is a poor transfer record based on all these players that have come in, right? So Anthony, Lisandro
Anthony.
Martinez, yeah, Andre Onana.
Everyone he's brought in, aside from almost everybody he's brought in, is players he's managed or played against.
He has been given quite a bit of leeway to shape the squad that he has right now, and he hasn't really done it, right? And that is something that I think works very strongly against him. He has, spent quite a bit. And to be
And
fair,
then
I would say, yeah, I would be fair, transfer value is not his fault, right? It's not the player's fault.
if he is demanding that we buy Anthony, for example, and
Yeah,
Anthony or nobody else, then I guess it is his fault, right?
yeah, I guess you have a point there. It's definitely a big risk, I think, if Ten Hag continues to look towards the Eredivisie for transfer targets in the future.
Mm, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Earlier you mentioned about uh how Ten Hag instills discipline in for his players. On the other hand, I think, the way he does it sometimes might seem a little bit old school. Like for example, his very public spat with Sancho, right?
Mm,
We mentioned that he sticks to minimal media drama, and I do believe that he tries to play all these things down in the media. He doesn't really want to build it up so much. But the fact is that I think some of these methods that he employs could maybe be a little bit more flexible when it comes to modern day footballers. And
mm.
there's really carrot and a stick way to do things, right? And Ten Hag to me comes across as very rigid in terms of, when he decides to stick, he will stick all the way, right? Yeah.
Do you think he's more like Jose than Ole
I would say yeah, actually.
in terms of his man management? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say actually more old school, more Jose than Ole. I mean, he does come across like he could be a little bit rigid in his management style. So I think that's something that may not be so suitable to some of the players these days. The younger studs, a bit
Mm.
more fragile, I would say. Yeah, like that's what I have to say about his management style. For better or for worse, may not be so suitable for the modern generation. I think one thing we mentioned earlier is the transfer record, right? About
Mm.
from Ten Hag, and I think this is related to that. The team's performances and results just hasn't been good. You look at the start of this season, I think there was a worst start in the league since for several
Since World War II or
decades.
something like that.
This is something where, in the second season, I think it's not as forgivable as what it was in the first season. It's been patchy at best, I would say. The team is now 6 points behind fifth place Spurs.
Yep.
That's enough to tell you the story, I think. We have a goal difference of zero.
The
Scored
goal difference,
39 goals.
the goal difference is what gets me. And I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Scored
you
39
oof.
goals, conceded 39. It's not been good, right? And this is the second season where he has had time to work on the squad. He has had time to add more players to try to shape the squad. But the results on the pitch have not shown that at all.
Here's my question to you about this. How much can a manager legislate for so many players not playing well? Your top scorer last season, just not making an effort. Your former captain just losing all confidence since some weird incident in Greece. Champions League winning defensive midfielder who suddenly wants to run around the whole field and attack. How much of it is down to Ten Hag, do you think?
Tactically wise, he he gets to control it, but I don't think tactics is the full picture, right? So there's a
Mm,
whole man management part of it where the whole way to manage a squad is both tactical, emotional, as well as the
mm.
squad morale plays a big part in how the team performs and how he actually gets the squad to gel together. It's another thing, right? It's not just tactics, but it's also how they interact. The way he has gone about it, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but
Mm.
something is there. There's some glue that's kind of missing from it.
You used the word glue just now
Yeah.
to as something that should logically keep everyone together. And so I guess you're saying that Ten Hag should be that glue, and right now he's not sticking.
In a way, the boss, the manager, has to find a way to enable the players to actually do their job well. This comes in whatever that we just spoke about, right? Tactically, inspirationally, emotionally, how he handles them, how he handles the squad. And there's just something that Ten Hag isn't doing right that is causing them not to perform as well as they should be. Either that or his tactics are being found out by opponents, right? You see new managers coming into the Premier League, like Ange Postecoglou, and even when De Zerbi took over from Potter, immediately you could see that they were playing effective football, and that's something that can't be said of Ten Hag. There's not an opponent that finds it difficult to break United down.
Yeah, and Unai Emery as well at Aston Villa,
Yeah,
and Spurs and Villa are the two teams above United now, and you can see what Postecoglou and De Zerbi and Emery want to do with their team, but it's hard to see what Ten Hag is trying to do with United.
a lot of people are saying that the squad is full of egos, the squad is full of players who don't care for the team, and a large part of the team are players that Ten Hag has brought in. So I really am not sure, to be honest. The identity that Ten Hag has been trying to implement has not been going through, right, to the players. Is of course this is the last point that really I wanted to bring up, that Ten Hag has basically failed to implement an identity for the team. And like what you mentioned, him being tactically flexible, sometimes good, but not necessarily actually a good thing if you think about it, because he does not actually have a foundation tactics that he can turn
Mm.
to, right? Which is
Do
why
you-
he is forced to be flexible.
I remember earlier in the season, Spurs against, I think it was Chelsea. They had two players sent off, and they were still trying to play that Postecoglou's high line with the wingbacks flying up, and Nicholas Jackson scores a hat trick.
Mhm.
Unai Emery with Aston Villa, first half of the season very very good. Second half less good, but they've basically been found out because they play an ultra high line, which does not work if Pau Torres is not playing. They've persisted in this, and even though like United beat Villa, right? United have good results against Spurs as well, but we are still behind them.
Yep. I think we've labored to beat all these teams, right? I mean,
Hmm.
there's hardly any game where you can, confidently say that we went out there and we dominated. Off the top of your head, can you actually think of more than one or two?
Unless it's against like a Luton or something, and even then, not always. I guess, like you're saying, there's no game you can say United won because the plan worked.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Imagine Ineos hires you as a consultant, and they are asking you how much of this is Ten Hag's fault. What would you say? They just want a one line answer.
Would say probably I would say probably like 40%.
40%.
Yeah.
So less than half, but still significant.
Significant from one single man, right? 40%.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think that's probably fair. Sometimes I feel it's higher. Sometimes I feel it's 60%, especially when he persists in playing Scott McTominay in games where Scott McTominay is like a do or die player. There are games where he'll score an important goal, but when he doesn't score an important goal, he's sometimes almost actively detrimental to the team, and yet he's always there. Between 40 to 60, yeah, you can't legislate for certain players just being so off form, but you can say why is Ten Hag picking them.
Mm,
You can't legislate for the midfield being so open because players are not disciplined, but you could say then Ten Hag should change something. Like I said at the start, this is a very interesting debate, and I think of all the managers we've had since Ferguson, this has been the most divisive one. It's
I
going to be
don't
an
know.
interesting summer, I think, because to me especially, I think I believe that Ineos will keep him on, because I think for Ineos it's win-win if they keep him. Because if they keep him and he turns it around next year, they'll be like, look, see what a good decision we've made. But if they keep him and he doesn't do well, Ineos will say, look at this manager, wasn't our appointment.
Yeah, I would that's a good point actually. I think in terms of, getting the support of the fans, I think this is the best thing that Ineos could do. Of course, anybody but Southgate.
Anybody but.